Well, good morning and welcome to the City Club Missoula's April Forum, our annual State of the Community, Building a Future for All of Us. My name is Brett Rosenberg and I have the privilege of serving as the chair of the City Club Missoula's Board of Directors, and I'm so glad to see so many of you coming in with us today. City Club's mission, as you know, is to bring people together to inform and inspire on issues vital to the community through public forums that encourage the discussion of new ideas and the free exchange of thought. We have a deep commitment to civility and civil discourse, even when we discuss very challenging issues. Before I introduce our moderators, some thank yous are in order. Thanks so much to the University of Montana and Alex Karklins for making these virtual forums happen so effectively. Also, thanks to Missoula Community Access Television, which records our forums as part of their media assistance grants to nonprofit organizations. MCAT serves our community on cable channels 189 and 190. You can also find videos of past CCM forums by clicking the video button on our website, cityclubmissoula.com. Thank you to our sponsors, in particular those at the executive level. In addition to the university, they are Blackfoot Communications and First Security Bank. Our executive level sponsors are key partners in helping to expand audience access and reliably planning and conducting our forums every month. We also like to highlight some other sponsors every month. So today we want to recognize Cost Care and Inc. Realty Group. Thank you so much for your support. And we're also grateful to our very diverse other sponsors and invite you to join them by going onto our website. And of course, thanks to our board of directors and our administrator, Danny Howlett. City Club Missoula would also like to acknowledge that we are in the Aboriginal territories of the Salish and Kalispel people, some of whom are present with us today at this forum. Today, we honor the path they have always shown us in caring for this place for the generations to come. Our moderator for today's forum is Laurel Staples. Laurel is the evening anchor for NBC Montana. She is originally from Polson and received her degree from the University of Montana. Laurel joined NBC Montana 10 years ago and previously worked in broadcasting in Butte, where she lived for 17 years and raised her 3 children. Before that, she worked in public relations for PNC Bancorp in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. She has received numerous awards, including the E.B. Craney Television Broadcaster of the Year and Television Newscaster of the Year for NBC Montana, and is a member of the NBC Montana News Team. She is a member of the Missoula Kiwanis Club and lives in Missoula County with her husband on their ranch. Laurel will introduce our panelists, and I will see you at the break roughly at 12:10, at which point we'll open the forum to questions from the audience. So over to you, Laurel. Thank you so much.
Okay. Well, thank you, Brett, for that wonderful introduction, and welcome everyone. I am thrilled and honored to be a part of this forum. Thank you for having me. And I look forward to hearing from everyone out there, our audience out there, and of course, our featured speakers on building a future for all of us. I believe Montana's best kept secret has always been its people and its sense of community. So as you know, Missoula and the whole region, in fact, most of Montana is in the midst of a major transformation. We're up against a lot of challenges as we look forward to the future, and there's a lot to unpack in this forum. So let's go ahead and get to work, and I'll introduce our speakers here. We have Juanita Biro, and she serves as the Missoula County Commissioner for District 1. That area spans the southern and southeast portions of the county, and she was first appointed to the commission in 2019 to fill the remainder of a vacated term, and is currently serving her first 6-year term after Missoula County voters elected her to fill the open seat in 2020. Commissioner Biro is a 4th generation partner in the Ibar El Ranch in Greeno. In addition to running her family business, she has served on various community conservation focused boards and committees, including as chair of the Montana Conservation Voters, Missoula County Open Lands Committee, the Big Blackfoot chapter of Trout Unlimited, Swan Valley Connections, and the Sunset School Board. Juanita has a bachelor's degree in English from Lewis and Clark College in Portland, Oregon, and she enjoys horses, her snowboard, and wandering after her husband and his llamas. I love that. All right, President Seth Bodnar, he joins us as well today. He serves as the 19th president of the University of Montana. Before coming to the university, he was a senior executive at General Electric Company, serving as its first ever chief digital officer and leading GE Transportation's digital solutions business. That's a mouthful. Prior to GE, President Bodnar served on the faculty at West Point, where he taught economics. He graduated first in his class at West Point, received both the Rhodes and Truman scholarships, and earned 2 master's degrees from the University of Oxford. He had a distinguished military career, serving in the 101st Airborne Division and the U.S. Army's 1st Special Forces Group. He is the son of 2 educators and the husband of a 5th generation Montanan. He's very proud to be raising his kids in Montana, and he considers it a great honor to be working on behalf of public education in such a special place. And then Mayor John Engen joins us, Missoula's 50th and longest serving mayor. He's accountable for the day-to-day operations of the city while providing leadership and vision for a community where quality of life is a core value for its citizens. Mayor Engen's accomplishments range from comprehensive planning efforts to ensure that Missoula is a compact, sustainable city to restoring the city's once private water system to public ownership. He's been a champion of conservation efforts, a partner in battling hunger and homelessness, and a proponent of thoughtful business development. Born in Missoula, he is a product of Willard Grade School, Hellgate High School, and the University of Montana. And he also enjoyed a career in print journalism, was a partner in 2 small businesses, and served a term as Missoula City Council member before being elected mayor for the first time in 2005. Well, welcome to all of our featured speakers. I know Juanita, she will bring us a recorded statement here. And are we still waiting maybe for President Seth Bodnar to join us, but we can go ahead and move on.
Oh, I'm here.
There you
Laura.
are. Yes,
Oh,
welcome.
yeah.
Glad to see you. So opening remarks is next, and we start with Commissioner Bureau's recorded statement.
Greetings, I'm out of service, so apologies for this pre-recording and any audio-visual issues you may experience. But just to make things interesting, I'll be sure to leave some messages for Commissioner Strohmeyer and Slotnick to mitigate in the question and answer period. If you're like me, the theme, building a future for all of us, may cause you to pause. Because when we say the word us, a them can be implied, potentially increasing the potential for othering, and especially in this day and age, I think that's something we should be aware of. But frankly, the future is coming for us regardless of what is or isn't built. So perhaps the question should be, what is the quality of said future and for whom? And to answer that, it's can be hard not to get straight up Eeyore sometimes. I mean, warmer, wetter winters, hotter, drier summers, dismal snowpack, droughts, and then weirdly floods, longer wildfire season, smoke, black bear scat in downtown at 5th and Gerald, grizzlies in the North Hills, increases in violent crime and domestic violence homicides, so much meth-infused mental illness, high rates of property theft and damage, intense recreation pressures on our rivers and across our public lands, and roads and bridges that are sorely in need of maintenance, not to mention septic, sewer, water concerns, astonishing increases in home prices and rental prices, material costs, labor shortage, inadequate childcare, and practically zero housing vacancies, plus the fact that, as we all know, property taxes that are too damn high. And if you're scrolling through social media, we're a community that is so divided and righteous that we're unhearing. Why would anyone want to live here, raise a family, or retire here? And it's because we love it. And like Steinbeck says to Charlie, it's difficult to analyze love when you're in it. So what is local government doing for you to maintain that love? Yep, there was, still is, a pandemic. It's sent things sideways. In Missoula County, we have over 30 departments with just over 800 employees serving, and 11 elected officials, serving 120,000 people across 2,614 square miles. But contrary to what you may hear or see at the state and national levels, we've actually learned how to better collaborate the past couple of years and strengthen trust within county departments and with community partners. Missoula County has embarked upon a strategic planning process, the first county in the state to do so, and we're working with the local government center to craft a decision-making process that will reflect community values, your values, and of course, implement the plan. You may know the maxim, you can't wring your hands and roll up your sleeves at the same time. Well, this holds true for local government. You may have also heard you make decisions based on where you're going, not where you are. So, where is Missoula County going? To address issues from Condon to Lolo, Frenchtown to Clinton, we ask ourselves 4 questions. Does it help with justice, equity, diversity, inclusion? 2, does it add to the livability, environmental sustainability, prosperity of the county? 3, does it have community support? And then 4, is it a unique opportunity? We ask ourselves these questions to make sure we're headed in the right direction. A few examples. So on May 5th, commissioners are going to hear the latest draft of our zoning code updates for the Missoula urban area outside of city limits. This is in the Y, Bonner area, and East Missoula. It's been 46 years since we've overhauled these regulations, and they no longer address current challenges and opportunities. So outdated codes create unintended regulatory barriers to housing development. We've heard that loud and clear. But wait, you say, what about natural resources? And as Commissioner Strohmeyer is fond of saying, Missoula County can walk and chew gum at the same time. Balancing the need for housing with protecting natural resources is the tenet of the new code. So clustering development to preserve the best agricultural areas respects individuals' rights to develop while supplying the community's need for local ag. Also critical to resource protection is riparian buffers along streams and rivers. These are wildlife corridors, and development in riparian areas increase risk of pollution and property damage from flooding and channel migration. So the code will protect riparian vegetation to keep our waterways cool and our soils intact and in place. These are important considerations in the face of climate change. These rules would apply to new development only and not existing homes. Okay, wildfire. While not part of the proposed zoning code, we continue to push and stress the importance of the home ignition zone. Timber management, fuels mitigation are critical, but we will never log our way to wildfire resilience. I mean, see the community of Denton in December, not a tree in sight, and look at that conflagration. So the county's working on ways to promote home hardening and maintenance of defensible space. Yes, and the question is, how do we keep Missoula County a place for everyone in the midst of climate change? One of the ways we're tackling this is just in February, we were the first county in Montana to make use of or to create a countywide commercial property assessment capital enhancement program, so better known as CPACE. This allows commercial property owners to invest in energy efficiency, water conservation, clean energy improvements, and pay those investments back through an assessment on their property taxes. So big thanks to the 2021 legislature for approving this tool, and to our sustainability manager, Dinah Mineta, and clerk and recorder treasurer, Tyler Gannant, for riding herd on this and making it happen. Our sustainability staff works closely with our IT departments, building, facilities, and public works to decarbonize, electrify, solarize, and improve energy efficiencies across the county in all our operations. We have a goal of carbon neutrality by 2035, and we continue to work with the City of Missoula to achieve 100% cleanly generated electricity in the urban area by 2030. We've also installed the largest rooftop solar array in Montana on the detention center. We've also had another rooftop array put on the public library, and more solar is being considered at other county-owned buildings. Building a community for everyone also means investing in infrastructure for everyone. So we're using our America Rescue Plan dollars to make much needed improvements to water and wastewater systems in lower income neighborhoods like Lewis and Clark, Sunset West, Elmar. We're also upgrading Lolo's water system as we anticipate that community to continue to grow. We've made incredible community investments out at the Missoula County Fairgrounds, which includes the Rocky Mountain Gardens and Exploration Center. It's a public-private partnership that will be home to a world-class butterfly house and insectarium and multiple county programs. You can entertain the grandkids and get all your gardening, farming, and range management needs or questions answered in one place. And of course, what has been done around homelessness? The county, the city, and partners stood up Operation Shelter to bolster the continuum of care or a continuum of options available to unsheltered people in the community. The temporary safe outdoor space out at Buckhouse Lane, the authorized camping site near Clark Fork Lane, and the Poverello Center near downtown. While successful, these places are all at capacity. And to add to that, the Johnson Street Emergency Winter Shelter is going to close later this month. So that's a lot, but agency collaboration has ramped up the past couple years to more quickly connect people with obtaining IDs, housing, treatment, employment, and to address the urban camping issue. Trinity and Villaggio developments plus the Crisis Receiving Center will be available in a couple years, but the caustic stew of abandonment, addiction, neglect, mental illness, and poverty remains a challenge. Also challenging is finding accessible childcare for families in any income bracket. The county is proud to support Missoula Chamber of Commerce efforts and 0 to 5 and United Way's efforts to create a childcare center at the former Cold Spring School. Other collaborative community efforts around childcare is developing and ongoing, and community investment in quality childcare will help families raise wholehearted, resilient children who won't crumble in the face of adversity and who won't succumb to unhealthy relationships with other people, substances, or themselves. At the other end of the spectrum, 16% of Missoula County's population is 65 years or older. Montana has one of the highest populations of seniors in the nation, and the pressure of Missoula Aging Services to provide assistance with dementia, housing, food, caregiver support, and financial services have been significant. People are living much longer, and the ability to age in place with confidence, dignity, and without fear is no easy task. Okay, running out of time. Be sure to ask Commissioners Strohmeyer and Slotnick what we're doing around river recreation. What I've mentioned here represents just a small portion of the steps county staff take daily to help Missoula County thrive. To make it easy for community members to stay informed and involved with projects like these, we've launched an online engagement platform, Missoula County Voice. So check it out at MissoulaCountyVoice.com. I'll wrap up by thanking City Club for this opportunity to showcase some of the solutions we strive for at the county. I'm privileged to be at 199 West Pine with my fellow commissioners Dave Strohmeyer and Josh Slotnick, plus staff and electeds of Missoula County, facing our community's challenges alongside Mayor Engen and President Bodner is an honor. The quality of Missoula County's future will depend on you and your ability to show up, and be of service. And you and your give a shit gives me hope and confidence that this will be a worthy future for all. Thank you.
All right. Up next is President Bodner. You have 10 minutes.
Well, thank you, Laurel, and thank you, Juanita. She's a tough act to follow, obviously, even with a recorded video. So, it's a privilege to be here today, and I want to thank City Club and the entire community, frankly, for the opportunity to provide an update. One of the things the many things that I think makes this community such a unique and special place is the strong relationship between the university, between the city, between the county. And, it's an honor for me to be here, not just as the president of but also as a dad who's raising 3 kiddos here. So I love this annual event, and I think it always demonstrates just how critical that working partnership is to our community today, but also into the future for my kiddos. So as you think about the university right now, I want to talk about 2 I think key themes, and the first of those is growth. It's actually a really exciting time to be a Grizzly, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But as the great writer of the West, Edward Abbey, once said, "Growth for the sake of growth is the ideology of the cancer cell." And so along with growth, the other theme we're focused on here at the university is innovation. So adapting what we do here to best serve this city, this county, this state, this republic. And the thing that drives that innovation, if you had to boil the mission of the University of Montana down to 2 words, those 2 words would be inclusive prosperity. Our fine mayor, who will follow me, speaks quite a bit about this as well, and I know Commissioner Vero as well. But when you think about it here at the university, our job is ultimately to provide opportunity for people from all starting points, all different walks of life, and help every individual on our campus and in our community achieve their full potential. So, as you think about what drives us here at the university, that's what we're focused on. And so we're excited about this time of growth, but I want this community to hear that we're always working to adapt. So I hit on the first theme real quickly, and again, that's growth. It's an exciting time. For the first time in a decade, our university is growing again. This fall, we had a freshman class that was 30% larger than last year's. And we're well positioned to capitalize on that growth in the years ahead. Indicators look good for next fall, and I would anticipate us bringing in a larger freshman class once again. And so really exciting. And it's interesting though, because people always want to ask, well, size of the incoming class, are you growing? Are you doing a better job recruiting? And yes, we are. And in the Q&A, I'd be happy to talk about that. But more important than just getting students here is back to that mission of inclusive prosperity, is making sure that we are providing the right support systems, the right environment, not just for students to come here, but for students to persist and students to succeed here at the University of Montana. And so over the past 3 to 4 years, we've put a heavy emphasis on student success efforts. And just, in the last 3 years, from 2018 to 2021, when you look at our first to second year retention rate among students, so that is the number of students who come back for their second year, we've seen an improvement of over 10% in terms of the number of students that come back here. We grew from 68 to 75%. So about 7 percentage points on a basis of 68 gets you about an 11% improvement. And that's significant. It's significant, not just for an enrollment standpoint, but it's significant in terms of the number of students that are here at the university, that if we had still that same retention rate that we had back in 2018, might have decided, hey, maybe I just couldn't cut it in college, even though they could. And so they would leave here with some student debt, but without a credential, and with a sense that, hey, maybe I'm not cut out for what college has to offer. And so, again, I'm excited about the improvement in recruiting, and excited about the idea that we're bringing bigger classes in, but I'm more excited about our improvements in helping our students succeed. And frankly, I know that that's a community-wide effort. And I know that many of you involved in the City Club have stepped up to participate in our new and improved orientation format that gets our students engaged across the Missoula community within the first hours after they arrive on campus. And this community is not just a big draw for our new students, but a sense of home, a sense of place is what keeps students here. And I want to thank this group for your efforts to welcome and engage not just those students, but their families. It's making a big difference. So And we're aiming to continue that enrollment growth. Also in the category of growth is the wonderful story about research here at the University of Montana. As many of you know, secured one of our, frankly, most significant achievements in the history of our university a couple months ago, and that is achieving Research 1 or R1 status in the Carnegie classification of institutions of higher ed. And this places us, among the top 4% of all universities in the entire country. We have outstanding faculty, outstanding research partnerships across the community. And that's why you've seen our research more than double over the past 5 to 6 years. Is currently the 6th fastest growing research university in the country. And when you think about it, the fact that, the nature of the university that we don't have a medical school, we don't have a college of engineering. And when you look at the data among those universities that are classified as R1, there are only 2 universities in the entire country, 2 large universities in the entire country that have neither a medical school nor a college of engineering, yet have R1 designation. And those 2 are the University of Oregon and your University of Montana. Those are the only 2 in the entire country. And so that research growth, not only does it help us attract world-class faculty, it helps us recruit more students. It also advances the reaches of knowledge. It creates jobs and businesses right here in our community, and it's really exciting. And then the third area in which we're growing is infrastructure. We're in the midst of the largest infrastructure overhaul probably in the history of our university, and these are fundamentally about making the experience for students here more effective. That's dorms, that's academic classrooms. We're building a new dining facility. It's very exciting, and I want to emphasize with this group, we're not building luxury here on the UM's campus. You won't see us, as I've joked with many, you won't see us building a lazy river, as you'll see on some campuses, maybe down in the South. You'll see that sometimes. We have the Clark Fork. We have no need for a lazy river. But we do need facilities that are up to 21st century standards, and that's what's really driving our efforts today. You'll see a lot of these efforts actually impacting the community. In fact, many of you are aware of the new Montana Museum of Art and Culture. The Museum of Art and Culture was founded around 130 years ago. It's been housed within since the earliest days of our university. But over the past 13 decades, we have this wonderful collection, actually the oldest and largest collection of art in the entire state, but only 1% of that entire collection has been displayed to the public. The vast majority of the collections have been, and these are things which include pieces collected by the Copper Kings, historic indigenous artwork, relics of this valley's past. They've been in boxes and basements around campus. And when we talk about inclusive prosperity, that means bringing access to those treasures to a broader range of our community. So in the fall of 2023, when this building is completed, that's going to change. This museum will serve our community. It'll serve our students as a learning space. It'll serve our community as a center for the arts. And we're really excited about what's happening. We do know that it has taken some parking offline. We know that's disruptive. We apologize for the convenience that some of you may feel, but we do have plans to restore that parking in other areas around campus. And I do believe that the construction of this museum is critical for Missoula, for our university, for our state. You'll see other adaptations. You'll see other things happen around campus. Knowles Hall is going to come offline, be renovated this summer. You'll see over the summer, we'll begin building an athletic field that'll serve not just our student athletes, but our students near the river, and it'll have a bubble over it during the winter, help with our students, help with our student athletes, as well as providing community access to indoor recreation during cold winter months. So a lot of innovation, a lot of infrastructure growth on our campus as well. But I mentioned innovation, and I just want to close by talking a little bit about that. and because we are innovating in three primary ways. You'll see us innovating in our curriculum, and developing new and more interdisciplinary academic programs to better serve our students, such as the environmental science and sustainability degree, which we just brought online. It's a new degree, more than 100 students enrolled in that new program this fall. It brings together courses and field programs across the College of Forestry and Conservation, gives that experiential hands-on learning opportunity for our students that they're craving. And it creates students that are well qualified for jobs in sustainability, conservation, restoration, outdoor advocacy. So you'll see us building more programs like that, such as our interactive media and game design program, which also recently launched, bringing together expertise from across different fields to help our students meet the community and business needs of today. And then you'll see us continuing to innovate until we, in terms of how we prepare students for careers. Our Elevate U program is really the university's signature career readiness program to make sure that every student has access to critical experiences like internships, that they're building those networking skills, and that they're getting connected so that, yes, they cross that stage with a degree, but also with access to a job. Because as an institution that serves a large proportion, almost 40% of our students are first generation students, a third of them are Pell eligible. It's critical, if we're going to talk about inclusive prosperity, that we create experiential learning and career success pathways for all of our students, not just for those students who come from backgrounds of privilege and have those networks already. And then finally, you'll hear us talk quite a bit about Accelerate Montana and what we're doing to help provide education and learning opportunities in partnership with employers for people at all stages of their careers and at every stage of their life. You've heard a lot about what we're doing with ATG and our Aim Higher program. I'm so excited about that, and we've got 3 to 4 more of those that we're working on. In fact, we have a manufacturing certificate that we're in the process of building at Missoula College in partnership with a local manufacturing employer to make sure that their employees are prepared with the technical, the safety, the project management, data analysis skills necessary for success. So I will close, but just to reiterate, we are a university that's growing. But we are growing in intentional ways and growing with our eyes clearly set on our mission of fostering inclusive prosperity in this community that we're so proud to be a part of. So thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I look forward to answering any questions folks may have.
All right. Thank you, President Bodner. And some wonderful things happening at the University of Montana. So very excited about that. And our final speaker, Mayor Engen, you have 10 minutes.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks to City Club for all that you do throughout the year to encourage us to talk to one another in meaningful ways and to learn what the facts are on the ground that are meaningful and changing lives. I have the good fortune of spending time with the 2 leaders you've heard from already, and this notion that I go last because I rock the world is baloney. They're both world rockers unto themselves, and I pick away at a little mandolin in the back of the hall once in a while. But I am grateful to share this virtual stage and talk about the things that we're doing together. It is impossible on a blustery day in Missoula, Montana in 2022 to be a cynic if you are the mayor of Missoula, Montana. The brief announcement that I have some health struggles has generated a flow of notes, cards, email, text messages that is, depending on the day, overwhelming. And I promise that I'll get to all of you at some point, but it's going to take me a little while. But what I learned from that, what I've been reminded by that experience is that there is still a sense of humanity and compassion and place that we are actually friends and neighbors, that we actually work together, that we actually believe in one another, and that we believe in our community. And that goes missing much of the time today as we focus on our small worlds that live on our small phones, that live in our small offices. And at the end of the day, what I think I've discovered in sort of short order is that while there are certainly aisles upon which we around which we organize ourselves, those aisles are human creations, and we can uncreate those aisles in the same way that we build them. The artificial divides that exist as a function of our labels today are merely that. They are imagined and manufactured and can be undone. And when we start to think about undoing them is when we unlock the power of communities like Missoula, Montana. There are three extraordinary issues that face our community, that face almost every community that's a desirable place to be in around the Western United States, around the United States, and frankly, around the world. And it is all about our collective approach to these issues that will make the change that we need to make. Our collective approach to solving problems, our collective approach to overcoming cynicism, our collective approach to rethinking what we do because we can, because we're able, because we're thoughtful, and because we trust one another is the next iteration of local politics, in my opinion. And if we divide those three critical issues quickly, we start with housing. Housing, a critical issue in Missoula, Montana, is around the state. The difference is, I think, our degree of intentionality and our degree of collaboration and our willingness to try and fail. There is no one who has cracked this case around the country to anyone's degree of satisfaction, but it ain't over yet, and the race is still a dead heat. And I think the winners will be the folks who are doing what we do. When we look at the University of Montana and students as real life human beings who are part and parcel of this community, who have an investment here today, and we hope to have an investment here tomorrow, as people who are part of the solution and also people who are experiencing the problem. If we think about the folks who are experiencing homelessness today, and the many factors that contributed to the fact that they are unhoused in our community, go back to their childhoods, their access to education, their access to adults who can steer them in the right direction, point them in the right place, give them a sense of experience and hope that they might not otherwise have at home. When we look at issues surrounding mental health and behavioral health, what we're seeing is an opportunity among these institutions, these thoughtful institutions, to work together to think about solving these problems differently, to recognize that that behavioral health is not just a problem of the city of Missoula, not just a problem of Missoula County, not just a problem of the University of Montana, or you name the agency or partner. It's our collective problem. And again, when we begin to work together, when we begin to overcome these boundaries that we created for ourselves that get in the way of doing the right thing, sometimes doing the wrong thing with the right intentions, we're not going to get anywhere. So we experiment. In the world of housing, we recognize, as Missoula County does, that our code and our design and our reforms will make a huge difference in the way that the housing gets built in our community and the way that housing is accepted by folks who have lived here their entire lives and folks who are longing to be here because they've found a sense of community and place that they have not found anywhere else. And each of those folks, they're welcome in our community, right? We don't exclude new folks who want to be here for all the right reasons, nor folks who have lived here forever And in some cases, it's gotten a little easier for them, or in some cases, it's gotten a little harder. We don't engage in that exclusion. So how do we work together? Well, we get social work students and emergency medical technicians, and we put them in a van and we send them out on crisis calls. And we do that in order to avoid responding in a manner that's less effective, that's more expensive, and yields worse outcomes. That's called our emergency support team. And that is a collaboration between Missoula County, the city of Missoula, and the University of Montana. And those collaborations will continue as we look at the gaps in serving people with behavioral health problems in our community who are suffering. And as a function of that suffering expands the broader community. In the arena of housing, as we look at the not so sexy components of code reform and what the rules and regulations say, we're also looking at how our rules and regulations tie into the natural and built environment, the environment that we've recognized in no small part because of the leadership of folks, professors and students at the University of Montana who recognized a long time ago that our natural environment is a primary asset, not a secondary or tertiary benefit that's here to be taken advantage of and then discarded. So as we look at the way we address our riverfront, the way we address our transportation systems, all of those pieces come together, and they all come together in ways that are associated with the work we're doing at UM, the city of Missoula, and Missoula County. Pardon me. And then finally, when I think about the University of Montana and the education that I received there, and I watch as young people jump through the extraordinary hoops that they jump through to find themselves in an Ivy League school somewhere in these United States, I think it is to a small degree a gentle tragedy that we are not really tooting our horn. And I thank Seth for being relentless in that. And I need to be better at that, in tooting the horn of a great institution. You heard some of the stats that came from Seth earlier. But the fact of the matter is that the University of Montana is still a place where a kid can afford to go to school, doesn't have to make every critical life choice the minute they show up at the front door of the institution, and then have 4 years of unrelenting stress trying to get to the other end of it in hopes that they can get a job that will simply cover the nut of their student loan. That is not the educational experience we wish on people. That is not how we want to treat people in our community who are going to be sitting in these chairs and Zooming to you, all of you, in the relatively near future. With that, we want to be partners in everything we do, and I think we're doing that, and I hit 10 minutes.
You can go a little longer if you would like, because I just received some information that Seth Bonner went over 13 minutes.
What good heavens? Well, then
Oh no, John,
I can
beat me
continue to
this
fill in
time. Oh
those
no.
blanks.
I was wondering, I didn't have a timer up. I should have, but
I do want to work just a little more on that student process, and that is we have been working now for the better part of a couple of years with the University of Montana. And the other thing to keep in mind is all of these programs, all of these initiatives, all of this innovation it's hard and challenging, requires a lot of herding and resources and time from people who are always very busy. But the fact of the matter is that we put together a program that we call Missoula Promise that we hope, we haven't sorted the funding, and I get that that's an issue, but our hope here is that in fairly near order, because of this partnership between the county, the city, the Missoula County Public Schools and the University of Montana and Missoula College, we can offer free, that is zero cost, two-year college to Missoula County residents. That is a place to start. That's a place to get your feet wet. That's the place where I got my feet wet. It cost me $300 a quarter to go to school at the University of Montana. It was real money. I earned that money, but that money didn't break. Money didn't break my back, and it allowed me to think about more than one thing at a time, and it allowed me to experiment. And I happen to be a second generation college kid, but my folks were not dialed into the, you're going to go to Harvard from day one. We weren't part of that crowd, nor were many of the kids I was with whom I was a peer. And so reducing those costs up front, taking some of the fear, taking some of the front load of facing potential disaster if this doesn't go right, makes a huge difference in terms of a person's ability to see who they might be, see what their potential really is. And I look forward to that program. And frankly, I would like to expand that program so that every Montana kid can go to the University of Montana for free. They can pay through the nose to go to those other joints, but they can come to us for free and get a remarkable world-class education.
All right, so we go back to Brett, it sounds like.
Hi, yeah, thank you, Mayor and President Bodnar and Recorded Commissioner Vero. It is now time for questions and answers. It's, as you know, a very rich part of every City Club discussion. Again, as I said at the beginning, we are committed to civil discourse, so we ask that you keep your questions civil and please avoid making statements. Also, use the Zoom Q&A function, not the chat, and someone from behind the scenes will forward your question as time permits to Laurel to ask to our panelists. At the end, I'll chime back in, and until then, let's go.
Okay, thank you, Brett. And while I wait for a couple of questions here, let's see, it looks like we have one question that just popped up. According to RAIN and the report on the AAU Campus Climate Survey on sexual assault and sexual misconduct, 13% of all students experience rape or sexual assault through physical force, violence, or incapacitation. How is the University of Montana working toward changing the past pervasiveness of this culture?
Yeah, I'll jump right in there, and I want to say thank you for that question. It's an incredibly important one, and this is something that the University of Montana, frankly, every university has to take very seriously. And so at the university, we have a host of efforts around training, around education, not just to prevent or not just to respond to sexual assault, but to prevent it. And that takes changing culture. And I want to really applaud leaders here on our campus, the leader of our Student Advocacy Resource Center, Jen Ewell, and her partner, Allie Pepper, who was our education and outreach coordinator. They are doing just a fantastic job. And in fact, this question is very timely because April, as many of you will know, is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And so the university has been hosting a number of events this month. Many of you may have noticed on April 6th, we had Main Hall bathed in teal light to acknowledge and support survivors who show their strength in recovering from that traumatic experience. And so all month long, our Student Advocacy Resource Center and local organizations are partnering to help not just community members learn how to intervene and prevent sexual assault, but also, again, to help and support and empower survivors as they heal from this trauma. So in fact, and I'll put it into the chat, there are some events even later this week that our Student Advocacy Resource Center is putting on with in coordination with the community. We have a panel. We have an Indigenous panel called Healing Sisters Through Resiliency. This Thursday, we have a movie and discussion, a movie showing of The Mask You Live In, followed by discussion as well as panels. So I really appreciate this question. It's something that we are absolutely focused on as a university. But I also want to thank the community, and that's law enforcement, that's the legal community, that is the health and medical community across Missoula that really all work together to address this really important issue.
Okay, and staying on that subject, I know with the growth that we're experiencing, there is an uptick in crime across the board. And who else would like to add on to that with the representing the city and the county? Mayor Engen?
Sure, thanks, Laurel. And again, this is an area of cooperation and collaboration, and the prevention piece continues to be a challenge, but the enforcement piece I'm pretty proud of today. We went through a complex process with the United States Department of Justice to enter into an agreement to really change the way we investigate sexual assault wholesale. We are a very victim-centered program today. And that program results in what we hope is more reporting, but that continues to be a challenge. There is still a lack of trust in the system, and there are victims of sexual assault who have absolutely no interest in being re-victimized. And so a piece of this puzzle is making sure that we're doing the proper outreach and education to ensure that folks can trust us to be their compassionate partner in moving through the trauma and our hope to seek justice through the process. Violent crime in general is a challenge. Most of it today is drug related, and we work with the federal government, particularly the FBI, in combining resources around high-level drug crimes. That is, we're not trying to pick up some poor user on the street and incarcerate them. We're trying to find the source of these huge shipments of drugs that are flowing through our communities and everything that goes with that: human trafficking, pardon me, gun violence, et cetera. And that program, we've got a good working relationship there, and we're working again across some of those jurisdictional boundaries to make a difference. Crime rates are relatively flat in Missoula. Doesn't mean that violent crime isn't on the rise nationally, but our numbers, or at least the last numbers I saw, were relatively flat. And some of that's intentional, some of it's luck, some of it's timing. But one of the things that all of these other programs do is we think about, for example, the behavioral health emphasis. If we've got the right folks showing up at the right time to deal with nonviolent folks, nonviolent crimes, things that actually aren't crimes to begin with, our traditional response has been a law enforcement response. And to the degree that we can redirect those patrol resources to violent crimes, we're doing better on the prevention side and on the solution side.
Okay, and we're keeping answers at about 2 minutes. Would the county like to chime in on that, our county representatives?
Sure. This is Josh Slotnick. I'm one of the 3 county commissioners, and Dave and I are here as one, taking one for the team in another locale. So I'm just going to piggyback a bit on what the mayor said. Our mobile crisis response team is out and about even as we speak, heading off issues that could become crimes before those crimes actually occur, and freeing up law enforcement resources to deal with things that are actually real issues. And it's this type of low-cost preventative measure that helps us not have to deal with high-cost, much harder to solve problems later on. And this is a small thing we've done, and really look forward to continuing this on in the future, where we make sure that people who are in a crisis have their actual crisis needs, those needs met, rather than being hauled off to jail or to the emergency room where they're not appropriate for those places.
And this is Commissioner Dave Strohmeyer. Just to echo what my colleague mentioned, this is all about looking for solutions farther upstream than simply a very narrow law and order approach to some of these challenges we face in our community. And it's something that we have not undertaken exactly how we're doing it right now in the past, but we're all about trying something new, and it entails risk, and we get that. But the risk of not doing anything is much greater, and certainly costlier for the community, costlier for the individuals at a very personal level who are not able to avail themselves of that treatment earlier on.
Well, there's so many more questions with this, but I'm receiving a lot of questions here from our audience out there, and we'll move on to another subject. And this one, can the regulations of Airbnbs be changed to enlarge opportunities for long-term renters who are currently shut out of the market? Who would like to start with that one?
I'm happy to take a quick run at it, Laurel. We are a bit hamstrung by the Montana legislature with regard to how we can regulate Airbnbs or rental properties in general. So that's certainly a challenge for our community and for others. We're just finishing up an inventory of Airbnbs that we will maintain, at least in terms of the near future, to understand what the real impact on the rental market is. We're not completely sure we understand that. So this inventory will be helpful, and depending on the nature of data, over time, we may be able to convince folks at the legislature that there is some opportunity for change if indeed the vacation home rental business is really putting a ding in the health of our market.
Commissioner Slotnick and Dave Strohmeyer, would you like to comment?
Sure, thanks. I'm just, as the mayor said, the city is a bit hamstrung by the legislature. I think we are hamstrung, calf roped, and gagged and bound. The legislature provides us barely any leeway to do anything around rent controls or anything like that. What we can do is address this issue through zoning. And so we have a new housing person starting up, I believe, next week. And one of this person's first projects is to do an inventory, and we'll find out where exactly these Airbnbs are and how many there are. And then we can start to look at how many we want to be out there, and what we can do in terms of zoning to make sure they're in the right spots. We fully get the impact that these short-term rentals, vacation rentals have had on the rental market, and but we'll do what we can within zoning to address it.
Well, and we recognize that there is this reality and potential for the dark underbelly of vacation rentals, but also I know folks in our community who are able to stay in their home because associated with their home they have an Airbnb or vacation rental. So how to think our way through this by first recognizing and coming to an understanding of how many of these units are in our community, but then secondly, balancing the very real benefits of these for individuals, homeowners in our communities against the potential downsides by taking off the rental market units that are now simply used by folks visiting our community.
All right, thank you. And President Bodner, I know with the growing enrollment, student retention and so forth, students are struggling to find housing out there. It's I have 3 children in the system, and what are your thoughts on changing Airbnb and future plans for more housing for students that are affordable so they can come here?
Yeah, thanks, Laura. I think a couple of fronts. I mean, there's the things that we can do as a university to improve and grow our available housing options, and we're working on that. One of the reasons that we undertook this infrastructure refresh is, we looked at our housing stock, we looked at our overall infrastructure on campus back in 2019. The age of plant ratio for our infrastructure was about 30% higher than peers. And so, and I heard, again, as I said at the outset, we're not looking to build luxury, condos for students, but we need dorms that are there are things that students want to stay in beyond that first year that we require them to stay in the dorms. And so Panzer Hall, as many of you know, is our newest residence hall, built over 30 years ago. And so we started with that, and we refreshed Panzer Hall, just finished it last fall, and students that are in there love it. We're going to take Knowles Hall offline after this semester and begin a renewal of that. Beautiful. It's a beautiful dorm. It's right there, as many of you know, across from the Lomason Center, close to Arthur Avenue. And so that'll be overhauled. And we're looking at renewing our dorms and our residence halls and our apartments on campus over the next couple of years. In addition to that, though, we do have our ASUM, because when students are out on the economy, they're seeing those rental struggles. And so I'm really proud of our students. Through ASUM, we've launched something called Bare Necessities. It's basic needs assistance, not just housing, but also rental assistance, help dealing with landlords. We have a food bank here on campus. I hate to say that we have to have those things here on our campus, but many of our students do face food insecurity and housing insecurity. And so we're working kind of on both ends to improve and expand the supply, but also address and help our students through the difficulties that they're seeing.
And also a quick follow-up question on that for President Bodner. The university is somewhat boxed in, and how does code reform policy impact the university campus with all the construction and everything that's going on, and what the future holds for that?
You know, I think what we try to, we always emphasize with our teams, right? This university was founded in 1893. We are stewards of this campus, which is one of the most beautiful in the country, gets ranked that consistently. And always, and I appreciate Brett's acknowledgement. We always acknowledge that we're in the Salish and Aboriginal territories of the Salish and Kalispel people. So we take very seriously our duty as stewards of this land. And so we have been, and it's a community partnership, right? We want to work with the city, with the community, to make sure that as we grow and as we adapt our campus, that we do so in a way that makes sense for this community. Sometimes not, of course, no one's always going to agree on what we should or can do. But for us, in terms of when it comes to things like code reform, when it comes to things with regulations, we want to work very closely with the city, with the county, not just on housing, but on transportation routes and expanding transport lines and parking and stop park and rides. And because many of our students are getting pushed further and further out of the community to places where they can live. So it's not just about code regulation in terms of what you can build, it's the transportation infrastructure to allow access to affordable housing where you can still, get to campus easily. So it's a whole host of issues that, again, that spirit of partnership is really what guides us.
Yeah, and I would like to go into a line of questioning on traffic and infrastructure at this point with our population growth, but I'm going to go back to some of our questions from our audience. And this person, what opportunities are there for changing the taxation rules for real estate investors to discourage commercial investment in single-family homes so that there is more affordable housing for families that wish to buy their primary residence? Who would like to address that? Mayor Engen?
Yeah, I'll give you the shortest answer you'll hear from me, Laurel, and that's none. We have a property tax system, a tax system in general in the state of Montana that's antiquated at best and built on a whole host of assumptions and presumptions that no longer exist, and we're feeling the squeeze of that. And there are lots of ways that other states have approached it, but real estate transfer taxes, all of that stuff is currently just off limits. It's dead on arrival at the Montana legislature. But there are lots of innovative tools that could help temper some of the challenges of this investment. I think the next round of investment that we'll see is not unlike what we're seeing in other communities around the nation, and that's hedge funds. They'll be coming in here and buying real estate portfolios and doing what hedge funds do. They maximize value and minimize cost, and some folks do very, very well, and a whole bunch of folks do not. And it's really unfortunate that we don't have some stopgaps.
Our county commissioners, would you like to?
Sure. Thanks, Laurel. This is Josh again. The mayor outlined it well. The legislature doesn't give us much room to prohibit things, but we can attempt to incentivize things. And we are looking at right now a voluntary deed restriction program where a person would be rewarded for putting a deed restriction on their house that would cap appreciation and limit, this is really important to your question, limit the potential pool of buyers for that property to someone who is actually going to live there, and which makes investment not a possibility. A personal investment, yes, but a corporate investment, no, which sounds to me a bit what your question was pointing at. And we're working on that right now, creating this program. Since it's incentive based and requires dollars, it's not going to be gigantic, but it'll be a pilot and we'll see where it goes. And this same sort of incentive based program to see our values around real estate realized in the world is in use in a handful of mountain towns across the West. And most recently, Big Sky has done something like this to create worker housing. I realize there's a lot of details left there, but I'm not going to bog up your time with it. But if anybody's interested, they should reach out.
Okay. Would anyone else like to comment? All right. Well, we'll go on to the next question. This is for President Bodnar. Because of past budget woes, many departments have suffered faculty cuts. My longtime program, I chaired the dance program within the theater and dance department, a regionally award-winning program, has been cut from 4 tenure track faculty to 2. As the university grows, are there proactive plans to restore faculty lines? It is certainly fabulous to hear about the growth.
Yeah, thanks, Amy, and good question. And I think it's worth kind of stating that our overall budget for academic affairs, so all of our departments, is increasing. It has increased each of the last 3 years. We're actually expanding the amount of dollars that we expend on faculty and teaching resources. What is correct is that there has been decreases in some departments at the same time that there have been increases in other departments. And that's a part of what we need to do to best serve our students' needs. Our top priority at the University of Montana is to place student success at the center of all that we do. And that means that as enrollments go up in some areas and down in others, our budgets and our faculty and our resources in each of those areas will do the same. Now, I want to emphasize we have a fundamental commitment to the humanities, to the arts at this university. We fund those beyond that which the enrollment levels in those areas, just given national trends, would call for. But we have to support excellence across our programs. As Mayor Engen mentioned, you can get as good an education here as you can at any institution in the land. And in fact, you'll see some exciting news that's embargoed until tomorrow about one of our students going toe-to-toe with students from across the country at Ivy League schools and beating them. And you'll hear about that young woman tomorrow as we're able to announce it. But you see our students out there as finalists for things like the Rhodes Scholarship, for other scholarships. Our students do as well as students from any other university, and part of that does involve a shifting of resources around departments, but we continue to invest and grow our overall commitment and resources to academic affairs and our faculty across colleges.
Okay. And this next question goes back to the infrastructure, traffic. Let's see here. How is Missoula City and County, as well as the university, preparing for a significant change in the transportation infrastructure? Subscription service, autonomous vehicles that will significantly decrease the number of active vehicles, as well as requiring less parking capacity. And I have a follow-up question to this as well. So who would like to start? Mayor Engen?
I was happy to. I wanted to give my commissioner colleagues a chance, but they ducked and covered, I noticed. So I'm happy to dive in. So we just wrapped up city and county through what we call our Metropolitan Planning Organization, our federal transportation plan. So we just adopted the latest round of that, and that sets the course really for about 40 years of funding in the transportation arena, much of that federal funding. And there is some necessarily business as usual that goes on there in terms of maintenance and facilities and the things that we know that we need, the places where we need to grow and change and make investment. But we also make a lot of investment in non-motorized transportation, particularly our trail and sidewalk system, and also transit. And I'd put our transit agency up against really anyone in the United States in terms of innovation, ridership, and youth. All that said, there is a whole bunch that we really don't know about what autonomous vehicles look like versus simply electric vehicles. Who are the owners of the fleets, all of that. And it's fascinating. It's a really interesting space in which to do research and think. And certainly was part and parcel of the conversation we had with our long range planners. But there is so much unknown right now that it's really hard to plan around that. The very simple things that we do is we look at design. So if we're building a parking garage, for example, that's a structure, we anticipate that may not always be used to park cars. So do you have to have 15-foot ceilings and et cetera, or do you have to have, do you right size those facilities? So all that's on the radar, but the blips are a little too blurry for us to make critical and clear choices around it beyond sort of picking at the fringes.
Okay, and our commissioners?
Yeah, I'll throw in a couple thoughts into the mix here. So
no railroad talk.
Well, now that the mayor has made the segue, the one area where we actually have had some conversation about how transit and particularly autonomous vehicles or ride share or other creative approaches to getting you to your first and last mile of travel does actually surround the rail issue. And I'll just bring this up again. Thank you for the opening to that, Mayor Engen. So Missoula County is one of 17 counties across the state of Montana that has come together to establish the Big Sky Passenger Rail Authority to restore passenger rail service to the southern tier of the state. So as I mentioned, once you show up at a station stop, you've got to figure out how you're going to get to your final destination. And that is something that the Rail Authority has kicked around in light of autonomous vehicles as a potential solution. Much more work to be done there, a lot of unknowns. But another really big development over the course of the past few years is the significant transportation work that is soon to break ground just west of Missoula. This is the so-called Build Grant area, or the Swatupcane planning area. And here a few years ago, the city of Missoula County successfully secured $13 million to add connectivity between Mullen and West Broadway, between the western edge of Missoula and the airport. This is a big deal, and this is something that's been discussed for years and years. It's not just a transportation project. It has everything to do with community development, the potential to add literally thousands of new residents and homes to our community in this area. And it has everything also to do with transportation, obviously, because it's providing that network of connectivity for our community, and not just motor vehicles, but also non-motorized bike pedestrian networks also. So we're super proud of that. And I think that's an example of some of the collaboration that's going on at the local level between jurisdictions, which has not always been the case.
Perfect. Thank you.
And President Bodnar, would you like to comment?
Yeah, I would. Thank you, Laura. I mean, I think this is really exciting, and I think both the mayor and the commissioners have made good points. I think, as we mentioned, this relates to housing, right? As students have to live further from campus, they need ways to get here reliably. And so you've seen, and I want to give huge credit to Jordan Hess, who's on this call, who works both. There's a great example of collaboration. He works here as our transportation leader for ASUM. And many of you are very aware of the electric bus fleet that has been established here at UM and is growing, is free for our students. And so I think we need to continue to think about holistically, right? How if I'm a student, you know, if I'm a worker needing to get from point A to point B, it has to be easy. And I mean, look, I have kids who are entering their will be teenagers in a couple of years. I want autonomous vehicles more than anybody probably in the world. And I just want them sitting behind and not texting and everything else. But that's probably a long way off. So in the meantime, we do need to, I think about that bus infrastructure, the other transit infrastructure. I want to applaud this city for the work that they do around bike trails and everything else, but thinking about transportation holistically. And it's going to take solutions that you know, I want to applaud ASUM and Jordan and for what they've done. It's going to take more thinking like that.
And a quick follow-up with our growing infrastructure needs. Do you support an infrastructure tax? Is that a direction that we need to go? Mary Ingen?
Well, we have them in place now, Laurel. I think the issues are a couple. One is at the federal level, you know, nobody's moved the dime on the federal gas tax, and I don't know, decades, right? We just moved it at the state level, and also ended up with a local option infrastructure tax that the legislature undid during the last session. So I think we have support among community members to tax visitors in particular for using our infrastructure, but we're just not getting the kind of headway we need with the legislature, nor at the federal level.
All right. Would anyone else like to follow up with that?
Going to reiterate what the mayor said about the gas tax. We attempted to have basically a transportation tax here, where the entirety of the money would go to maintain and reconstruct and add new pieces to our road grid. And our voters voted for it in the midst of COVID, the early part of COVID, when people were really financially uncertain, and we still voted for it. And the next year, the legislature took it away. So there you go.
Well, and here are some of the very real impacts and effects of that. This very morning, we had a meeting with our Public Works Department discussing how, in the midst of spiraling costs for construction materials and everything else that we know by way of inflation, how do we even maintain the existing number of road miles that we have in the past? And for Missoula County, this also, given the fact that, as Commissioner Vero stated, we extend clear up to the north past Sealy Lake and Condon, to the south to Lolo. We have over 200 miles of gravel and dirt roads in Missoula County. And for us to be able to provide dust abatement on those roads, we were counting on the gas tax dollars that we were getting. And we, in fact, had hoped to be able to expand our road maintenance program and eat away at that backlog of road maintenance with those gas tax dollars that would have provided match for other federal grants. In the absence of that, the reality is we are either going to need to find new sources of revenue or scale back some of the maintenance that folks have asked for us to provide, and rightfully so.
Just want to add to that the kind of preposterousness of the situation. So we have 120,000 residents. Haven't seen the numbers for 2021, but I wouldn't be surprised if our visitor totals came in close to 2 million. So just wrap your mind around that. The incredible disproportionate numbers in use. And those folks who come, sure, they come in small groups, and then they drive the heck out of our roads, and we who live here pay for it. And the gas tax was a way for people who are visiting us to actually pay for the services they use. That's just kind of straight up fairness, personal responsibility, taking care of what you use. And in fact, we are maintaining those roads for them, which is not right.
President Bodnar, I know that you have growing infrastructure needs there at the campus.
I think that's the points that have been made are important. And I think Commissioner Slotnick's point's a great one, right? And you could extrapolate that stat to the rest of the state too, in terms of the residents who live here versus the visitors that come to this great state. And we embrace them, we welcome them. We have the Tourism Institute here at the University of Montana that does analysis, and every report shows tourism growing like this, like this, like this, and that places great demands on our community. And so I'm not a politician, right? I'm a state employee, so I'm not here to necessarily advocate for policy positions outside of those related to education, but I think is an important first principle to say, how do we make sure that the users of infrastructure, the users of the things within our state are paying their fair share? And I think we see many instances where that's not the case, and the burdens are being carried by everyday Montanans. And I think we have to make changes there. So I applaud our leadership's effort to do so.
Right, I'll go to our next question here from our audience. The housing supply is near all-time lows, pushing prices to all-time highs. I know we touched on this. Are local governments doing anything to recruit more housing developers to the area and encourage more projects?
We are in a couple of ways, Laurel. And right now, frankly, the issue isn't recruiting. It's not recruiting development or developing development companies as much as it is controlling costs, time of service, that is how long it takes us to move a project from a notion to a shovel going in the ground. So that's why our process and code reform work is important. That's why some of the realignment we're doing within our departments are important. And the other thing to keep in mind here is that we never recovered from the Great Recession in terms of housing starts around the country. And so we're not only keeping up with today's demand, but we got about 10 years of demand that was just the fields were fallow. We weren't building houses because a lot of people were A, taken out of the market, or B, burned by the market. And so the real challenge is how we take the time, complication, and money or excess cost out of the system, and then how do we make direct investment in what it is we actually intentionally want to do. And I think parts of the market take care of themselves, other parts of the market do not, and that's where having those infrastructure funds, whether it's through our redevelopment agency or through federal programs, can make all the difference.
Okay.
So a few things Missoula County is working on. One, and this is something that Commissioner Barrow hit on, is overhauling our antiquated 1970s era zoning code. And this is a big foundational step for us that was preceded a few years ago by amending our growth policy for the urbanizing area around Missoula County. What oftentimes happens is every so often the city or the county, and not just Missoula and Missoula County, but across the state, might update their growth policies, but fail to take the next and oftentimes harder step to do the rezoning and to zone the actual land itself to match the growth policy document. So that is what we are undertaking right now. And hopefully in the next few months, we'll have a brand new zoning code that will address enhanced opportunities for housing development in our community that aligns with all of the many values that we have, including natural resource protection. Another thing that we are all about is leveraging tax increment finance districts, or with Missoula County, some of the specific districts that you might think of and that come to mind are not only the district that recently sunset out by the airport, but we created a new district out by the Y. We have a thriving district out in Bonner, the West Log Yard District in West Riverside. These are opportunities to create infrastructure investments that will not only service industrial uses, but our hope is that they will, as kind of an ancillary effect, provide the impetus for additional homes and housing construction and starts in those particular areas.
So when I add on this new zoning code, our zoning code incentivizes permanently affordable housing, also has specific incentives for, takes barriers away to create smaller multifamily housing by right, which means you don't have to go through the same depth of process. And unfortunately, all these changes, not the zoning code, but the changes on the ground, the housing needs have to be met on Tuesday. And that's absolutely impossible. It takes so long to do these things. And I'm not talking about governmental process. I'm talking about literally getting contractors, getting building materials and having the work done. And unfortunately, there's a big time lag there. And we're right in the midst of that. The only other piece I want to add to this is something I've said multiple times. We're attempting to address national demand with local supply. And that is a mismatch, kind of like the mismatch of attempting to locally fund all the infrastructure needs of our many guests. It's a really complex and kind of out of whack situation. And over time, we'll get a little bit of a hold on it, but nothing, we can't make ground in the short term because it's impossible to make that kind of ground up. There can't be 1,000 new houses by next month.
We could depress the value of property and the price of housing in Missoula by firing up the teepee burners again and flooding our air with pollution. We could turn our river again into a open sewer and dump. None of us want that. And so the challenge that we have is this is a high quality of life region. People love it and want to come here and are willing to pay a premium for that. So how do we navigate around all of those challenges and opportunities?
Yeah, we are a bit of victims of our own success here, intentionally and sometimes somewhat inadvertently. We created this place that's really, really wonderful, so wonderful that everybody wants to be here.
Yeah.
Only piece I wanted to add to this is we are at a really intense moment right now where I don't ever remember a time like this where we have no housing inventory, extremely high construction costs, and we are poised to have really high interest rates once again. And what happens when all these three things come together? I'm almost certain that our housing environment right now is not going to be the same as it is a year from now. Even though those 10,000 houses need to be built, won't have been built yet. We are on the precipice of big change.
President Bodnar, would you like to follow up on that?
You know, I don't have a whole lot to add. I mean, again, for us at the university, it's one of the reasons we are focusing on improving not just the quality, but the quantity of housing options available to students on campus, because we see those very real pressures. And so we're in a race there as well. One of the reasons we went out and restructured our debt and freed up more capital a couple of years ago is we kind of saw this trend and said we have to enable more options for students here on campus. And so we're working to do that, and that we're hoping to help alleviate some of the concerns of students and also community by association.
Okay, wow, the time flew by and we're getting close. We just have 2 minutes. So how about just a quick closing message, and we'll start with Mayor Engen.
Oh gosh, you've heard my message ad nauseum today. We're a great community that will continue to be great. It will not be without some challenges, but I can't imagine a better place to meet those challenges than Missoula, Montana.
Okay, and we'll go to our commissioners.
In this national and state context where politics have become so divisive, so toxic, I echo the mayor's comments that we in Missoula, Montana have shown ourselves through this pandemic to be able to pull together with a spirit of resilience and in the face of adversity and work together and accomplish big things. And I am so proud of our community, and I think our best days are yet to come.
And not only are we blessed with an amazing natural landscape, we are also blessed with an intensely engaged populace. And as Juan alluded to in her recorded remarks, people here need to show up. They have been showing up, and they should keep showing up. And that's how we make our place even better and move it forward is really by actively participating.
Okay, President Bodnar?
It's just a privilege to be here. You know, we talk about, we're focused always here at the University of Montana on our 5 institutional priorities for action. One of those 5 is to partner with place. And when we say that, we mean that, you know, the University of Montana should be a better university because it is located here in Missoula, and of the leaders here in Missoula, and the community should be better because the university is here. I will tell you with 100% certainty that that this university is better because of its location here in Missoula, and because of that spirit of partnership, that spirit of inclusive prosperity that you've seen so clearly embraced by the leaders that spoke today and the questions that were asked. And I will also tell you that I work every day, and our team works every day to make sure that we're doing everything we can to make sure that the second point of that is true, and that the community is better because of what the university is doing. So we take that responsibility seriously, and it's been a privilege to be here today.
All right. Well, I guess it's time to hand things over to Brett. Thank you all.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Engen, President Bodnar, and it turns out the entire Missoula County Commission. We certainly appreciate your time today, and you each in your closing statements encapsulated what I think the City Club Missoula is continually trying to do, and we appreciate you helping to articulate that for us today. Laurel, thank you so much. Appreciate your time today, and thanks to our sponsors, in particular the University of Montana and First Security Bank and Blackfoot Communications, and most importantly to our audience. We can't do this without you, and we appreciate you showing up every month on the Zoom. Hopefully we won't be doing it for much longer this way, and we'll be back in person. I think we have at least one more Zoom to go, and that will be on May 9th. It's entitled Destination Stewardship, How We Can Keep from Loving Montana to Death. It sort of resonates with what Laurel said at the beginning, that we're in a transformational time in Missoula and Montana. And I think that panel should address a lot of our concerns, and we hope to see you there. So please check out our website, www.cityclubmissoula.com, for more details, and it should be up on our Facebook page later this week as well. And until next time, I bid you all adieu. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.